Hello, greetings everyone. Whoever is watching today, we are privileged to have you on yet another episode of of Black Mental Health Matters show. And I'm Nasasra Claire, who's going to host this privilege to have Dr. Stella Nyanzi in today's studios to have the conversation about mental. She's a politician, she's a mother, she's a mental health advocate, and I'm sure she will tell us more about her. As we can discuss mental health as it is. So, doctor, introduction, tell us who you are, and we can go into the topic itself.
All right. So, hi, Claire. It's a pleasure for me to be here at your live session on Black Health, Black Mental Health Matters. As you've introduced me, my name is Stella Nyanzi. I am an academic with a PhD in medical anthropology. Now that I'm also a human rights activist, many times people forget that my first career identification is as an academic. I'm a postdoc who is currently working at home as a researcher, focusing really on politics and the participation of women. I'm also a social justice activist. I believe in non-peaceful protests and demonstrations, especially when people have issues to raise against our particular policies and practices of government. I'm a poet and a creative writer. I've published 2 books of poetry. I'm a mother of teenage children. I'm a Facebooker. And I think for me, what matters the most is that I'm a Black woman from Uganda. I'm a Black African woman. And a lot of what I speak therefore as a Black African woman located in Uganda.
Okay, thank you so much, doctor. So, if we may, have you had any mental health issues in your life before?
Very
As a
many. I
person,
have
have you
had
had
very
any
many
mental
mental
health
health
issues?
issues. I've had very many mental health issues in my life. Mental health is a status. To be healthy is a very good thing. And so to be mentally healthy is good. I think your question really should be around mental illness. And so if your question is, have I suffered mental illness? I think for me that one of the problems is a question like that to a lay person who does not have the ability to diagnose themselves. Mental illness has got a range of classifications that have been recorded in psychiatry for a long time. And so when you say to me, have you had mental illness? I think for me that unless one practices witchcraft, unless they are a psychiatrist or a psychologist with the ability to assess and diagnose themselves, it's impossible for a layperson to say, I have had bipolar, or I have had depression, or I have had, whatever, anxiety or insomnia. Having said that, I want to say that because I am currently I'm 47 years old, menopause is probably on the way. A number of women, as we get towards our menopause, our premenstrual anxieties increase, right? I've been a mother, and for very many mothers, especially those such as myself who have carried twins, who have had multiple pregnancies, there are issues around our own health and the health of our children, which may result into insomnia and lack of sleep. I've been a prisoner. As a prisoner, I was traumatized in many ways. I was tortured. I experienced violence. And the experiences of the trauma that I had in prison led to a miscarriage. Now, the entirety of all that pain that I experienced as a prisoner, not once, but twice in remand prison at maximum security, resulted into anxieties and panics. Are they diagnosed by a psychiatrist? No, but I know when I'm anxious. I know when I get panic attacks. I know also that immediately after my release from the longest sentence I served in prison, I used to suffer from a condition that still has not been diagnosed. I've seen a number of therapists who still don't know. But when I saw men in uniform, I would collapse, right? And so there are a number of possible explanations for my issue around collapse when I see particular triggers related to the prison institution. However, I don't have a diagnosis as yet. Of course, as a person who studied in Uganda at school, there was a lot of stress around exam time, right? As a woman who falls in love and falls out of love, who breaks hearts and has her heart broken, I've suffered rejection. And sometimes heartbreak causes a number of mental health challenges, especially when one can't cope with the idea of rejection. I also want to say that perhaps my most intense, my most severe sort of experiences with symptoms of possible mental health issues has been around my political campaign as a woman based in the opposition. So I'm opposed to the government of Yoweri Museveni, and running the COVID-19 lockdown in Uganda was one of the highest stressors that possibly caused a lot of distress and depression and anxiety and worry and insomnia and sleeplessness for me. And so, have I had mental health issues? I've given you a number of areas where one could say, there could be symptoms I've suffered from. I'm one of the few people who've been very lucky to go to psychiatrists because my father was a medical doctor, and he was leading a team of a number of specialists, including both psychiatrists and psychologists, mentally healthy. So I don't have a diagnosis, although many times I have had to struggle with the post traumatic stress disorders resulting from prison, resulting from torture during arrest, resulting from abduction. I suffered. I was abducted by gunmen who were masked, and I was detained in a facility that was not named. Um, and sometimes euphoria or mental health challenges for me. However, as I've said to you quite clearly, no psychiatrist has given me a classified diagnosis for a mental disorder or mental illness. Claire, are you still there?
Thank you so
You've got
much
to unmute
for
yourself.
the insights of. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for the insights that you've shared with us and that you've been able to pass through and fight against and about you've had depression, maybe according to what you said, you've had depression, you had anxiety. So,
Claire,
how
you're
have you been
breaking.
able to
I
deal
can't
with
hear
all
what
these
you're
issues since
saying.
you have? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, now you're clear.
Yeah. So I was mentally, including depression, anxiety, and all those other challenges. How have you been able to deal with them to ensure that you no doctor has given out a proper diagnosis of what you're suffering from? So
You've got to say the last part of your question because you broke off.
I'm asking ensure that you keep your mental health afloat despite not getting a proper diagnosis from the psychiatrist that you are able to visit.
Right. No, so I think what happened is I've gone to psychiatrists and psychologists and I've had therapy. I have not been diagnosed. The lack of a diagnosis must not be equated to the lack of service, right? The lack of a diagnosis means that one is clinically not suffering from a mental health condition. However, it does not mean that therefore the challenges that one faces must not be acknowledged. So a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist referred me to a psychotherapist and said to me, you don't need psychiatric intervention. You might need to see a psychologist to help you with dealing with insomnia. Because I said to the psychiatrist, I'm not looking for sleeping pills. I know that a number of women in their 40s and their 30s in Uganda are addicted to sleeping pills because they can't get sleep, or they resort to alcohol or drugs just before they go to bed in order to get sleep, right? Now, I was suffering from insomnia because when I was imprisoned, the lights stay on. I slept directly under a fluorescent tube, which did not allow me to sleep. Even when I closed my eyes, I was always aware that there were lights on. And so my metabolism, or the way that I sleep, changed and adjusted when morning came and the lights were taken off. Then I would have yearnings for sleep. However, during the night, I was unable to sleep because in prison, the lights never went off. When I gained my liberty and came back home, it did not matter that I could switch my lights on and off. In the night hours, I was unable to sleep and I suffered from insomnia. And I think that part of that process just needed me to adjust my schedule and have activities that ensured I was tired by evening, such that my tired body would lull me to sleep. And so, what a psychologist said to me is some of these coping mechanisms, you're going to have to start working with them because we shall not give you sleeping pills, which can be addictive. Also, because I specifically said to them, I do not want to be given any sleeping pill. So, what we did was to then adjust my schedule, and I'd wake up and struggle because in prison I used to sleep in the mornings. So I had to wake up and stay awake doing things outside my house, things and activities that necessitated me to be on my feet. And slowly my routine readjusted. And now I sleep at night. So that's one example where I was given a coping mechanism by a psychologist in the absence of psychiatric pharmacological products like sleeping pills, right? That's one example where a psychiatrist, having found that actually I was doing well, referred me to a psychotherapist who then introduced a new daily routine into my activities. I'm a writer. I spend a lot of time at a desk or in my bed writing, right? Because also in prison, I quickly coped with having the lights on all the time at night and began to write a lot at night. I was able to publish in prison. Another way I have dealt with trauma or grief or sadness is through writing, right? When we have built up emotion, pent up emotion, in my case, when I was a prisoner, I used to go through daily trauma, daily taunting, daily insults, daily abuse. Sometimes the abuse was physical, but I never yielded or pain and holding it in and pretending and psychological breakdown and cry, but I refused to break down and cry for all the 50 tremendously. I refused to cry. Even when I had a miscarriage of my baby, I refused to cry in prison. Even when I was tortured and my dead child was denied closure, my fetus, the miscarriage was burnt up with clinic refuse at the prison, I refused to cry. And so I needed to release this pain. What a talk therapist said to me was it might help me to release this emotion through writing. And so I began to write about my experiences, and truth be told, as I wrote out the pain and wrote out the torture and wrote out the pent up emotion, I broke down and cried very many times. And this was very cathartic, it was very therapeutic. And I have found my healing through writing, either for the public, or writing in my private journal, or writing down the poems that I write and share with people. Some of them have remained public. So writing is another form of therapy for me. It was recommended to me by a talk therapist. How else have I dealt? I think that for me, being in the company of people who love me, being in the company of people who love me, because one of the experiences I said was most challenging to mental health and well-being was running a political campaign during I was running on the opposition card. Insult and ridicule, and how I coped or strengthened was by receiving a lot of love from my inner family circle. So my children, my partner, my friends, my campaign team offered a lot of therapy in terms of dealing with those issues that were often raised either by my fellow contestants or by people who didn't know me but wrote to me toxically online, be it Facebook or Twitter, but also the press, who made it a habit often to compare me to women I thought were of less standing in terms of quality, because anyway, truth be told, among all the contestants, I had the highest level of education. And many times the press made a mockery of this, made a mockery of my political activism and my social justice protests, some of which have included the use of nudity and the use of graphic language. And so what we did as a family unit, but also as my campaign team, was to address each of these issues. And so the pain that was created by the toxicity coming from outside was often handled through the love and mediation of those who believed in my campaign and who understand the sort of politics and protestations that I put up.
Um,
So I've given you 3 examples of how I've coped. You've got to unmute yourself, Claire.
Sorry? I'm hearing you.
10
I'm hearing.
seconds now, just waiting for you to say something.
You were asking me for you to pardon so that I can respond back.
No, I didn't say pardon. I said I've been waiting for 10 seconds for you to say something. I've been waiting for your next question.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Something else I wanted to talk about is we are now discussing motherhood, and discussing politics and mental health. I understand that you recently lost the election for the Kampala Member of Parliament, for the Kampala Woman Member of Parliament seat, and in the thing that you talked about that traumatized you was that loss, the election loss. How did you deal with it? You talked about the press walking you around. You talked about lots of issues that happened. How did
Actually,
you
no, you
cope
have
with the loss?
misunderstood me. You have misunderstood me. You have misunderstood. Claire, you have misunderstood me. The most traumatic event was not the loss. And if by loss you mean not going to parliament, that is not what I meant. The trauma came from the campaign, right? The trauma came from running a campaign that was heavily toxic, running from a campaign that included pressure from the police, which did not allow opposition members to congregate and have meetings, which arrested me at least 8 times in 2020 alone. I was arrested and detained by the police during peaceful protests 8 times. And for any one woman, this is quite intense, right? So the loss of the election is not what is traumatic. The pressure that surrounds the election campaign, because the loss of not going to parliament is a one-day announcement. It is the pressure around running a campaign, the pressure of having no money. I think that very many women, but also some men in Uganda have resorted to borrowing from banks in order to run a campaign. Very many others mayoral contestants who are women who had to exchange their bodies sexually for money from potential funders for their campaigns. And so the trauma does not come from of not going to parliament. The trauma comes from raising the funds, the pressure of raising the funds, and experiences of intense financial lockdown when economies of scale are negative, when people don't have an income. And so a lot of the pressure. Oh, Claire, are you still there?
I'm listening in. I'm listening in. I'm listening in. Thank you for that. Now we are going to switch to motherhood. I understand that
Claire,
you
are you
have.
Still there?
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Claire,
Can you hear me?
it says I'm still in the show, but I can't see you. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. I am. I'm still here. Oh, lost her. So, we are hosting Dr. Stella Nyanzi, though we have had a little bit of a network problem. She's off, but she'll be getting back to us as we continue to discuss the impact on mental health and motherhood. Dr. Stella Nyanzi is a mother. She's a politician. She's also a mental health advocate. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it seems that the connection is not working too. I don't know if it's my end or your end.
Well, I'm also not sure because this side it's raining cats and dogs, so maybe it must be my side.
So do you want us to continue, or shall we suspend this and try again another time? Because now I can't hear you. Claire.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. But do you want us to suspend this for a better time when the internet is better?
No, we are working on time, so we have to proceed.
No, we're not working on time. We're not working if we can't hear each other. We are not working. This is a stressor. It is disturbing my mental health.
You are a mother to 3 beautiful children. Like you said, you're a Facebook. You like posting on Facebook. You like
I can't hear you, Claire. I can't hear
you and your family on social media.
Your connection is breaking. Your voice is breaking. I can't hear you. Claire.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. So when you say, can you hear me now? I hear you. But once you start asking questions, I don't hear you. Something is wrong with the connection. And we can't do this. We can't fight for network.
So we are, like I was saying before, I know you are very beautiful children. Um, sorry, we've lost Dr. Stella. She's gone off because of poor. Like I said, she's a mother to beautiful children. She's a politician. She's also a mental health advocate, and she's been taking us through her journey as a mental health advocate, and how she's been able to mental health challenges that she's been able to face along the way, including in her journey with politics, to about her family and her mental health is Dr. Stella Nyanzi. So I think we are going to end the show from here, but next able to get her, we shall proceed with the conversation. But we can as well proceed, continue with this from our social media platforms. You can continue commenting according to what you've heard from hand. Next time is going to be better, all of you.
Okay.